It comes down to being people and community oriented. All of our marketing is about the people. I see a lot of other companies in our industry that like to post about before and after trash bin pictures. I can't tell you the last time I ever posted a picture on our social media of a trash bin.
Hey everybody, welcome back inside of Trash Chatter. I'm your host, Victoria Conway, and today I'm thrilled to be welcoming onto the show Brendan Brown from the Bin Spa. Brendan, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me, Victoria.
Of course, appreciate you taking some time. I'm excited to get to a lot of different topics with you because obviously you have your bin cleaning company, but there's some other things we're going to get into in different terms that you try to help the industry out with. But before we get into all of those details, I want to take you back to when you first learned about bin cleaning, what prompted you to get into this industry, and what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, great question. I didn't choose this industry. In fact, as a northerner, I didn't even know this industry existed. What I did know, and we're going to talk, I think you have some questions about my Army experience later, but after West Point and after, being an officer here at 69th Brigade at Fort Hood, I realized quickly that I needed to be an entrepreneur and I needed to work for myself. So what I was thinking of was starting a business. I even thought about, buying into a franchise of anything, a McDonald's, Burger, whatever it was. Um, Acquisitional entrepreneurship was the least popular thing on my radar in the back of my mind. Didn't even consider it. But as I was getting my MBA online, as I was thinking about what I want to do next, an opportunity just came up. There was an individual in my community who had kind of a side hustle, little pickup model truck business, a couple customers, pressure washer, old school stuff. He was selling it, and it just made sense. The finances made sense. There was already a manager in place, a technician in place. It was kind of cash flow positive with the terms he was setting. So I just thought, this is a low threat opportunity to understand entrepreneurship. My background before that, I was big into the sports training world. That was kind of my industry. I grew up at the Parisi Speed School in Fairlawn, New Jersey, one of the most dominant, preeminent sports training facilities in the world. And that's what I loved. I was a power lifter. I was a football player. That's always what I kind of thought I was going to get into. Um, and now I do some coaching on the side. But what I love about this industry is how objective I get to be about making decisions for the business. We're not saving lives. We're not. It's a low threat industry where I can make decisions that are good for business. Right when I come coach high schoolers and teenagers, I get a little too passionate. There's a blur between passion and what's good for business. But I got into this industry just from a pure opportunity. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was about. And it wasn't until I really got involved and finally bought the business and started seeing how it ran that I realized it was just backwards how I thought about it. What was being sold to me, what I was thinking was the service, which was about the trash bins looking good, had nothing to do with what the business actually was. We're going to talk about that later. I know about how the industry really should work. Once I started seeing kind of behind the curtains and what the industry was, what the service really provided, the freedom here in Texas, the use of your garage again, that's when I shifted my mindset into, hey, this is a really cool industry. This is something that's sustainable, that's scalable, and something that I could see myself growing for a long time.
Absolutely. And you're unique to it where I don't think we've had a guest on that started by acquiring a company. So you had mentioned to me off camera that company was around for about roughly 5 years. And about 3.5 years ago, you got into it with them and decided to acquire it. And you mentioned that that system had about 100 gallons of waters on a Ford 150. How quickly did you realize, okay, if I want to scale this, I'm going to need to upgrade and get more water capacity to tackle more bins?
Yeah, very quickly. I realized one, I'm going to have capacity issues. Two, it was a bin wash system, kind of poorly welded and mounted on the back of a pickup. The payload capacity didn't even make sense. My suspension was dying right away. And my background, for any veterans who are listening in, knowing that I'm a West Pointer, an officer, the joke is when everyone else is working on the Humvees and the LMTVs in the motor pool, we're stuck doing paperwork in the office. So I don't know anything about mechanics. I'm so bad mechanically. So that was my fault. Even when I bought in, I didn't even understand what the payload capacity was and all this stuff. But a couple months in, I'm realizing this is a dangerous truck that looks like it's already failing on me. And I'm already finding half my days we have to stop for water and reset the whole day and go refill water. It wasn't sustainable. So probably within 5 months, I think is when I contacted you guys at Sparkling Bins. And I realized, hey, although I had a cash flow positive business, if I really want to take this seriously and scale and be able to get to the next step, I got to invest in the right equipment. I ended up going with an SB4 from you guys, and that was the best decision I've ever made to start scaling my business. And since then, it's just taken off and exploded.
That's incredible, Brendan. We know that you're extremely passionate about the industry, and something you can tell too just from beginning this interview how passionate you are about your time with West Point and the Army. How do you think that experience translated into running your own business and the day to day operations and what it takes to make a business successful?
Yeah, well, first, the reason I got out was because I needed to be rewarded for hard work and innovation. Um, West Point itself, a bunch of high achievers, it was great. Once I got into, what's quote unquote the real army, not the case. And what I was finding was the more competent I was at my job, the better I was at my job, the more innovative I was. You know, the pay grade is set. So instead of being rewarded with time off or other opportunities, I was rewarded with more responsibility. Hey, you got to stay late. You got to handle this task because you're the only one we trust. You're the best at this. So it was kind of opposite of what you'd expect. The better you do, I was getting more stuff. The people who were worst performers were going home early and enjoying their weekend. Um, so the only way I can truly benefit from my hard work was to work for myself, to be an entrepreneur, and vice versa, to take the risk of. I hate the idea of showing up to a place of work, a place of employment, and no matter how much I care or don't care, my paycheck's going to be the same. No, I think that's so backwards. So that's also my philosophy for my employees now. We're going to reward hard work and innovation. But what I did take away from the Army, and it has shaped my business in so many ways, West Point, and just the lessons I've learned along the way. First is leadership. And leadership's a verb. People like to say, "Oh, what's your leadership philosophy?" And that's wrong. If you have hey, I'm this type of leader, or I'm this kind of leader, I think that's backwards. What you need to do is you need to be the leader for whatever person or group that you're leading. And everyone needs to be led in a different way. And your bottom goal is to get the mission accomplished. And if you have to lead laissez-faire style for one group, or one individual needs to be micromanaged, or one leader, one individual wants more of that transactional leadership, you got to do what you got to do to get the mission accomplished. So you have to be fluid in your leadership, right? It's a verb. It's not a noun. And that's hard in real life. I find it in this industry, it's hard. At West Point, the preeminent leadership institution in the world, whatever people call it, it's actually quite easy. Yeah, we learn so much, but everyone there wants to be led. Everyone there wants to achieve. A lot of the leadership books people read, you see Green Berets and Navy SEALs have a lot of leadership books. The problem is, once again, those people want to be led. They're high achievers. They're motivated. Once you get to some units where people don't want to be there, they don't enjoy their life. Leading people who are apathetic, leading people who are forced to do something can be very, very hard. So in the real Army, that was when I started learning, what leadership really looked like. And then I get into BinSpa, and I learned leadership more than I've ever learned. It seems so weird. You think, how do you learn more leadership in trash bin cleaning than you did at the United States Military Academy and as a commissioned officer in the Army? And the truth is, in the Army, you got to listen to me no matter what. I have legal authority over you. We have UCMJ action. Here, if you don't like the culture I've set, if you don't like my style of leadership, you can just leave. And then the team, has to overcome that. And that's tough. It's happened, right? So you have to be a lot more meticulous in leadership because nobody's forced to listen to you. And there's a lot of people, especially in this industry, when we hire drivers, they're on their own. You have to trust them. You have to hope they get every job accomplished to your standard without direct supervision. That can be tough. So my main takeaways besides leadership, I'd say just creating SOPs, create a lot of standard operating procedures. That's something the Army has instilled in me. Battle rhythms, just daily, weekly, monthly battle rhythms. And then how to instill culture. That's something that I've also learned kind of goes hand in hand with leadership, but instilling a really good culture for my team and for what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Absolutely. And you've done a great job establishing your culture. You mentioned that SB4 you got quickly after you acquired that company. You got another one this year. So obviously your business is growing, Brendan, and I'm sure that comes from rewarding employees, trying to build that culture. But there's another aspect to trash bin cleaning that is always a hot topic debate, right? How to market, how to find success. How have you found with your business out in Texas that you've been able to market effectively and inevitably grow your business?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to being people and community oriented. All of our marketing is about the people. I see a lot of other companies in our industry that like to post about before and after trash bin pictures. I can't tell you the last time I ever posted a picture on our social media of a trash bin, because that's not what it's about. It's about the people. It's about our people. It's about our community. So that's everything that we do with marketing. We have a Facebook video that's about to hit 1 million total views. We put out hundreds of likes, lots of comments, and it's funny and it's personable. It's not about the bins; it's about the team. It's about showing that we're people, we're active in the community, and we're just like everyone else. And the best way to kind of make the business about people and the community is to do cool out of the box marketing ideas and campaigns that are people and community oriented. For example, this last weekend, we helped sponsor a toy drive. We raised 4 trash bins full of toys. We did a beer pong tournament out of mini trash bins. We called it trash pong. We got, hundreds of dollars raised. I have it here as a koozie. We use these
There
same,
you go.
we played beer pong out of it, got involved in the community, got to raise some money for a great cause. We did the wacky boat race last month. We turned trash bins into a boat and we raced it for charity. We do every parade we can do. We were at a pet extravaganza last weekend at the exposition center. Yesterday and all month we've been doing trunk or treats. I dress as Oscar the Grouch, and I just the kids love it. Kids don't these days, I don't think, watch Sesame Street because everyone keeps calling me the Grinch. So, but the parents
They're not confused.
parents get it, and they're the ones I'm selling to, so that's all that matters. Even, for example, there's a local women's bar downtown where me and the owner became friends, and now we have a signature drink on their menu. They call it Your Ex. So it's the same little mini trash bin, but the pink one of this, it's like a tequila grapefruit cocktail they serve their clients. They probably sell 100 a week, but they're souvenir cups. They get to keep them. It's great for business. It's right in my demographic. And it's funny, they call it Your Ex because, right, it's trash or whatever. So
That's a good marketing ploy. I'm sure a lot of people enjoy that.
yeah. So and that goes back to understanding your demographic. And 35 to 55-year-old woman is exactly what I'm trying to reach. So this bar was the perfect crossover. It's fun for them. When I buy in bulk, it costs me 90 cents a bin, and they get to hand out 100 of them a week, or a month, whatever they do. So yeah, thinking outside the box for marketing, being fun, being personable, and doing everything about the people, right? It's not about the bins. If you're putting flyers and it's just, hey, your bin stinks, we can make it not stink. It is what it is. But when you're having fun, when you're showing personality, and when you're engaging with the community and you're giving back, that's how our marketing has kept us growing and has kind of brought us to that next level.
Some really unique ideas, Brendan. You can tell even from your shirt, right? We're talking about it off air. You've got the bin spa shirt. It's like a Hawaiian style, a little bit collared. Yeah, make sure if you're listening, make sure you check out YouTube so that you can see it. But I mean, I remember when you came down for training and my dad posted photos of you guys. I'm like, Brendan looks exactly like somebody I'd want to talk to be like, what's on your shirt?
It's great. Even when I go downtown, because I'm always engaging the community, I'm at chamber events, I'm at boosters. So whatever I'm in, whatever I'm drinking, I put it in one of these and I walk around. People won't stop me. And now everyone knows me in the community. I'm the bin guy or whatever they want to call it. But the people who don't, they'll stop me and they'll say, that's so cute or that's so cool. And it's a great conversation starter. And then my goal is every time I leave the house, I always have a couple with me and I never come home with them. I make sure I give them out to people. I'm like, you like it? You know what? Here, have it. Make it a pencil holder. Make it, put a plant in it. But I never leave the house with it. And it's just a great little trinket that helps get the name out for branding.
Absolutely. Once again, here inside of Trash Chatter with Brendan Brown from the Bin Spa out of Texas. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to like and subscribe to Trash Chatter. New episodes come out once a month where you're talking about some of his unique marketing strategies. And one thing, Brendan, is for you to say, okay, this is how we're going to go about marketing. But what was it like trying to get your company employees, your drivers, the people that are working with you to buy into that aspect of, okay, we want to be fun, we want to be personable, and have the culture really start from the ground up?
Yeah, like you said, it's about culture. The first thing is just setting the standard, and we have a standard of excellence. So that's what it comes down to. We need to be excellent in everything we do. If I'm going to be a little vulgar here, kind of our internal model in our daily meetings is just give a shit. And I know it sounds, but it's kind of on purpose that it's vulgar because, hey, we're in a blue collar industry. A lot of my technicians, they want to be spoken to, not in terms of soft science. If I'm like, hey guys, our values are empowerment and the things you see at a bank, it's like, hey, it just doesn't resonate as much. And I've seen it doesn't, so I have to just say, we have to be short, sweet, and to the point. It's, hey, if we give a shit, if we just care, then things happen. If we are excellent in what we do, if we put people first, and that's what this is. This is internally, this is a logistics and operations and a marketing industry that happens to clean trash bins. Externally, for my employees, I say this is a people business. If you just put people at the center of everything we do, the trash bins will take care of themselves. At this point, with the right equipment, if you're with sparkling bins, you should have the right equipment. And if you hire the right people, then the trash bin is going to be cleaned. It's going to be cleaned very well and very consistently. That's the least of my concerns on a daily basis. That's the least of my concerns. When I'm thinking about improvements, the trash bin getting cleaned is the last thing. I'm thinking internally, operations, logistics, and marketing. And for my employees, they just think, hey, how do I care about the people? And if you hire the right people into your business and they care about the community and the customers, man, you just can't stop yourself from growing.
No, absolutely. And I know with your experience with the marketing and the way you've seen it help your business, there's something you started recently called the Bin Spa University, and want to ask you to talk a little bit about what that is, what it offers, and how you have the mission statement of trying to help other people that are getting into this industry. And there's so much advice out there, but there's still so much people just don't know until they're getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of goes back to the very beginning about opportunity. And I saw an opportunity. So because of the Army, we talked about standard operating procedures and SOPs. I had written hundreds of them at this point. And talking about people, I was connecting with different people in this industry, and I was learning and I was growing, and we were sharing ideas. And I just saw an opportunity. I said, nobody's, sharing. There were these Facebook groups that had questions, but no one was really sharing what's working for them. No one's really talking about new ideas. And a lot of the Facebook posts were about the bins. What did I say? It's not about the bins. The industry is about marketing, logistics, and operations. In your company, it's about the people. It's about the community. So why is every question about the trash bin? Why is every question about what pressure this, what degree nozzle that, what chemical this? It's so easy to clean once you have a little experience, get some practice. But I didn't see the questions about how do I scale this business? How do I grow it? How do I involve myself in the community? How do I get myself to the next step? And I said, well, hey, I have all these SOPs I've created to help myself with continuity and my employees and my team learn all this stuff and grow. As I was talking with other people, and I had some new entrants into the industry come to me and ask me some questions, and I gave them all these resources. I said, there's an opportunity to create something better for everyone. So I created Bin Spa University. It started just as a platform so I could post all my SOPs for my employees, make sure they were trained, and I would assign them homework and different lessons to read. I started letting people in, and I realized this is something that the industry can really, really benefit from. And that's just grown. In the last 16 months, we have 32 courses now, about 315 individual lessons, 9 case studies. We just put another case study out yesterday about the charity toy drive and the beer pong tournament, how to get involved and make your own charity events. That's a new case study. And then the best value is every other week we have a video call. We either have a topic or we try to bring on a guest speaker, very similar to what you're doing with me today, Victoria, but with a big group, and get everyone to get together to talk, to share ideas, to discuss. And selfishly, it's helped me so much. And that's why I created this group. You said something beforehand about, what does it cost? It's $20. And that really just covers the server fee and the ability to bring on some guest speakers. So what do I gain from it? Well, I want to host this anyway, because my employees, I want them to have all this access to lessons, and I give them homework from the course itself. But for me, I get to bring on people and listen and learn. Every market's different. There are things that other people are doing around the country they're just crushing it. And I want to hear from it. And I want to be able to derive ideas for my own business from it. So it's really cool. It's been growing. And then thanks to you guys, we're now part of your turnkey package. So we're just really excited to be even more involved with the sparkling bin side, and help all of your customers as well just get their foot off the ground and start to be able to think about this not as a side hustle, not in terms of the bins, not as something to take cash from, but from an investment. This is an asset. And if you want to, we'll talk about franchises here in a second. I'm the most anti-franchise guy in the industry, I promise you. But if you want to buy yourself a job, fine. But if you want to own a scalable asset that has a lot of potential, you got to see this industry for what it is: operations, logistics, and marketing. And it's a people business, not a trash bin business.
I really like that saying, because you're right. We talk to hundreds of people a week, and there's so many questions of like, what engine's on there? And of course, those are valid questions. When you're spending money, you have to find out. But I think if people approach it more in terms of like, how can my brand be out there? How can people get to know us as a household name? I think those are our clients that we see scale the fastest and are known in the community. So that's awesome that you're implementing that with Bin Spa University. And the more we all communicate and share ideas and thoughts, the better it's going to be for everyone. So that's awesome that you've started that and that clients are enjoying it. Definitely have gotten some great feedback. And I wanted to touch on something you just said about being the most anti-franchise guy in the industry, because we get calls about that as well. Why aren't you franchising? And, we have our reasons, but happy to hear from you why you're anti-franchise. Because you said at first you thought, okay, maybe I want to get into some type of franchise.
Yeah, I want to go into that in depth because I am so passionate Like anti-franchise. Just to one last thing on the last subject. Like I said at the beginning, I'm the least mechanically minded person, and we've grown at such an exponential rate and have had such success. You don't need to be mechanically minded. You don't need to worry about all this stuff. First of all, that's why I went with sparkling bins, because I can call you guys and David anytime I have an issue, and you can hire out. There's so many people that you can hire that know more than you and can fill that bridge. But if you're doing everything, if you're an owner operator and you're trying to worry about the mechanics and this, and you don't know it, you're in over your head. You need to find your lane. So to grow this, if that's the questions on your mind, yeah, learn it. Of course, it's great, but very quickly within a few months, your mindset should be on the business as an asset, as an investment, not about every little equipment upgrade and every little new chemical, new deodorizer, new degreaser that's on the market. Yeah. On that note, let me get into anti-franchising, because truly, one of the side reasons I have Binspy University is to get rid of franchises in this entire industry. I think they're kind of a cancer, if I'm going to be very blunt. So for franchises, and I did say I was looking into franchise at the beginning, right? But why? What does a franchise do? Well, an ideal franchise has name value, and they provide, industry secrets, brand recognition, and systems that allow you to be successful from day one. I could start a Chick-fil-A in my town, and everyone knows what Chick-fil-A is. And Chick-fil-A provides me with the resources. They provide me with the trade secrets. They provide me with the menu and the items, how to set up the kitchen, how to hire. They help me with marketing, right? At Super Bowl Sunday, you'll see a Chick-fil-A commercial, so I don't have to spend my own money. They're spending it nationally, so everyone knows what the brand is. So that's a franchise you want to buy into. I'd buy into a Chick-fil-A franchise tomorrow. What franchise don't you want to buy into? Well, I wouldn't want to buy into a franchise that doesn't actually help me grow. I mean, a franchise that there's no brand recognition. To neither of our credit, Victoria, if we just dropped a sparkling bins or a bin spa in Idaho, nobody would know what it is. It doesn't provide anything. If we dropped a McDonald's in Idaho, we'd get customers from day one. But there's no name recognition. There's no value, right? In fact, this industry is so young. Not only would they not know what sparkling bins is or what bin spa is, they wouldn't even know that trash bin cleaning is an industry for the most part. That's still at the infancy of this industry in general. And there's no secret sauce. There really is not. So there's no name that's so catchy that you need to spend $50,000 on a franchise fee. I'll tell you what, if you want to buy yourself a really expensive job, franchise in this industry, right? That is it. Otherwise, what's the reason people get in? Well, just like I said in the beginning, I want to get in to grow something that's mine. I want to have the freedom and autonomy to make decisions, to be a business owner, to scale something. When you're in a franchise, your freedoms is shrunk, right? You can't be creative. You can't just make changes. In fact, when I made this, there was a short period where we just always put "and power washing" on the bottom of my logo. At that point, we were still trying to do a little more soft washing and driveways. And as we've grown, I'm like, I don't want to do that. We're the bin spa, so I took it off. I just went on Canva, I just took it off. Next day, everything's changed. In a franchise, you can't do that. You can't just make changes to the brand or slogans or ideas. Everything's has to be gone through the corporate, through the main entity. And on that note, I see these franchises are the opposite of what I believe in, right? I believe in a people, community-based business. Most of the franchises that I see are so corporate. In fact, we have a competitor that just started. You call them, I'm in Texas. You call them and you go to Nevada or Utah to a call center and you say, well, can I talk to someone in Texas? No, you cannot. We can't do that, but we can help you here, from the hours of 9 to 5, and then the phones shut off. So I just find that the franchises are setting people up for failure. You're spending there's a high barrier to entry in this industry. If you want to do this right, if you want to scale effectively, I mentioned investing in an SB4. I think that's the best way to do it. But whether it's an SB1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, there's a high cost to get to this industry if you want to do it right, if you want to scale. So that's already a tough roadblock to overcome. Then you got to do all the other stuff. You got to either work it yourself, which less scalable, but I get some people want to start there. You have all the software, you have all the other things you need to buy, then you have insurance, and you have to have a shop. So there's a lot of expenses. And then on top of all that, why would you want to add a $10,000 to $50,000 franchise fee, give up 10% of your revenue or profit sharing or licensing fee or whatever it is on a monthly basis to have less freedom, less autonomy to make changes, to make decisions, to grow something that's yours, equity in your brand? It's all backwards to me. I think it's unpersonable. And right, if you're saying, well, hey, they have the secret sauce. They're so successful. Look at them. They're in this major metropolitan area. They got 6 trucks. They're making $1 million a year. I talk to them. They're so successful. It's great. That does not translate all the time. It does not, because there's no secret sauce. Every market is different. What works for me in Central Texas is not going to necessarily work for somebody in New York, and that's not going to work for someone in Miami. It's every market's different. Um, so there's no systems, there's no secrets that they can share with you that you can't learn on your own, or at Bin Spy University for $20 instead of for $20,000. Right? I'll share one little case study, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but there was a franchise that started up in my area that failed pretty quickly. They started with an SB5, and first of all, there was no market research. Dumpster cleaning is just not something that's needed in this area. There's very little demand. And believe me, I've tried very hard. So that's 100 and I don't know what SB5s ran for a couple years ago, but 170,000. Yeah, a lot of money, right? For no one to want the dumpsters cleaned. Okay, so now we're trying to get the residential. You're in a saturated market. You don't know what you're doing. The franchise owner is not actually, although they have 12 trucks and they're wildly successful themselves due to a lot of city contracts that they were able to get by being in a blue ocean, by being an early adapter in the industry. Now you have someone who's not really helping someone in a smaller, saturated market that doesn't know what they're doing, and was set up for failure. After 18 months, they had 60 customers, and then I bought them out and offered the guy a job because I wanted him to be part of my team, and I don't want to see someone struggle. That was an example of a franchise kind of letting down. In the first place, they should have said, this is probably not a good opportunity. But guess what? They got a $50,000 franchise fee, right? So that guy gets a $50,000 check, goes on a vacation with his family to Jamaica. Great. And then gets 10% of his revenue, whatever it was, for the next 18 months until he failed. But that individual lost a ton of money, and all it was doing was just working, not only for free, they were paying themselves to work their butts off for 18 months straight. And that's when I was like, this is terrible. This needs to stop in our industry. It's almost a scam. We'll talk about how I want to scale in a second, but it's not by franchising. I think even if you want to talk the other side of things, unless you either are not a great person and want somebody to spend $50,000 to do something you could probably teach them to do in a week, then franchising is not the model to grow right now in our industry. We're going to talk here in a little bit about, acquisitions and mergers, something I've done a couple already. That's a great way. But on both sides, I couldn't tell you how much I would disagree. If you told me you wanted to buy into a franchise, I'd say, let's have a 2-hour conversation and you can do it yourself. You can find a name that works. You can figure out the systems that work, and you can save yourself a lot of hassle, keep a lot of freedom, and save a lot of money. And then the flip side, if you said, well, hey, I'm doing so good, I want to franchise this out, let's talk. Because I think that's not, on an ethical side, I think it might not be the right move to make. I think there's also a lot of risk that you take, especially starting a franchise into your own brand, and how you want to scale and grow eventually. If it's a cash grab, and that's what it seems like it's being right now, it is what it is. But yeah, if anybody wants to get into this industry and thinks, hey, I'll franchise, it'll be easier, they're not seeing the bigger picture. They're short term, think, okay, I'm reducing some risk because this, I have a company I talk to that works, but it's something they can very easily learn on their own, or even hire and keep all the equity to get a business partner, to get a consultant, or to get a coach. There's a lot of coaches in this industry too, to get a coach that can get them to where they need to be without that $50,000 franchise fee and losing out on all the benefits of business ownership.
No, absolutely, Brendan. I think next time somebody asks me, why don't we franchise, I'm just going to send them this episode and give them the timestamp and say, think about it. Because, we get those questions all the time, and it's just, there's so many reasons. So we try to tell people, like you said, you have Bin Spy University. We can help people out with websites, routing software, tidbits. You can get a lot of assistance and not put down that money, and then also pay another company while you're busting your butt trying to clean bins. Because as anyone who's been in this industry knows, it's a grind at times. But I know you.
Yeah, pricing you see is a big one because every market has different prices. What works in California will not work in Arkansas. I promise you that. So right now, I can go on my website right after we end. I could raise all my prices by $5. I could lower my prices by $5. So it's twofold. It's one, doing things that are different per my market, per adjustments, per what's changing. But two, it's the ability to make changes autonomously on my own, instantaneously. So yeah.
Most people want to be their own boss. So I think when you have that franchise, you think you might get some freedom, but there's a lot of restrictions that come with it. And I know when you got into this business, we talked about you acquired it. So what would be a piece of advice you'd give to somebody if they're looking to maybe get into an acquisition? What would be something you would draw up from your playbook for them?
Yeah, absolutely. First, it's the people. It's the networking. So a lot of times you're not going to go online and bizbuysell.com and just see listings for you at a great price. Oftentimes it's the relationships that you build that are going to give you the opportunities to make acquisitions in the first place. So make those relationships. I had a friendly competitor. He worked in the county south of me, and we were friends. We really didn't overlap our territories. Even if we did, it was minimal. But we got together. We referred jobs to each other. We talked about strategies. He was an older gentleman, and then eventually he was thinking about getting out. And I said, "Hey, I would love to make you an offer to see if we can work something out." And we did, right? And that doubled my business, that acquisition, but it was because of the relationship we built prior. Um, so the relationship is what allowed it to happen, right? But I tell you this, people always ask me, how do you price an acquisition? And the short answer is you price it, especially in this industry, you price it for what it's worth to you. You don't price it based on just a blank number for some stranger coming in. If you want to do a EBITDA based calculation, a discounted cash flow for the next 5 year projection, there's all these ways you learn in business school of how to value a company. But the truth is, a lot of the times, because there's only a couple businesses, and if you're finding an acquisition, especially one that's going to help you organically grow, whether it's in your territory or an expansion right next to your current territory, what does it do for your business? As in, put them together. What is the actual profit difference? So say you buy a company $1 million, and okay, we're going to have $10,000 more in profit every month. If you're able to find a way to finance that where you're spending $10,000 a month to buy the business, to do this acquisition, well, then you're neutral, you're net zero. At the same time, that might actually allow you to grow faster just because of the snowball method. So if, when I bought the company south of me, the bank said, we're not going to finance this. That's overpriced. The bottom line was the seller said, this is my price. Either take it or I'm going to keep running. So I had to say to myself, okay, will I buy at this price or do I let it, go? A bank would say, well, based on discounted cash flow rates on their EBITDA, it's not worth that much. But to me, I said, well, if I can just break even on this deal on a monthly basis, I know that I can use this and have economies of scale work in my favor, and then create opportunities to grow both even faster. It was a snowball effect. So it was a 1+1 = 3 kind of deal, because I knew that I can take over and make some changes, merge them together seamlessly, get to the next step. So the bottom line is, when you're trying to find deals, you make relationships, but then more importantly is when you try to figure out how much to pay, do it for what makes sense for you. It might not make sense for somebody else, but if you already have the shop, if you already have the systems that work, and you might pay a premium and it might be worth something to you. If this is your first acquisition, if you're, like I was when you first come in the industry, now you got to price it kind of holistically at what it's worth at face value. I think acquisitions is a great form of growing in this industry. That's kind of my method, my scaling model right now is acquisitions and mergers. I think you can do a lot by taking what's working for you, buying out another company, and then making those changes. Kind of a business arbitrage opportunity, if you will.
No, definitely. We had Brian Flincham from Mr. Clean Bins out of Jacksonville that he's done that via Tampa, now Orlando. So it's definitely a very interesting business model and one you don't see too often just yet in the industry, Brendan. So I'm glad that that's something you're planning, and obviously it's how you got started. And one last piece of advice we were going to ask you before we let you go is there a piece of advice that maybe is non-industry related that's helped you scale your business?
Yeah, I have a great piece of advice, and it's not industry or non-industry related. It's just business related, and that's people. Everything we do, everything I've said today, kind of the central theme should be it's about people. So if you can learn how to talk to people, if you can learn how to communicate better, if you can learn how to sell, and then most importantly, if you can learn how to network, I think that's the skills that really successful business owners absolutely dominate to take themselves to the next level. I think the networking I've done and the relationships I've built with influential people in the community has been the number one thing to help me grow. And the way I talk to people, the way I talk to customers builds that trust. They're going to stay on for life. Our churn is very low because of the rapport and the trust I built with my customers. My people skills with my employees allows me to create a great culture, create trust, create an environment of excellence and some fun, and that's allowed my business to grow. And then the networking I've done around town has provided me opportunities to meet all these other business owners. There's not a single thing that could go wrong that I don't have somebody to call. I have a mechanic on hand. My AC goes out, I have an HVAC guy in hand. A solenoid goes out, I have an electrician. I have a hydraulics place. I have a pressure washing service place. And all these things are networking opportunities that it's not just showing up and paying the money to their shop. It's building relationships. So if you want to become an excellent business owner in this industry, learn how to talk to people, learn people skills, and then go out of your way to make and build as many relationships as you possibly can.
Awesome, Brendan. Thank you so much for taking some time today here inside of Trash Chatter. I think a lot of people are going to gain insight. It's definitely been a very unique episode in terms of marketing strategies, as well as different ways to approach your business. So, want to thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Victoria. Absolutely.
Once again, if you're enjoying Trash Chatter, make sure you like and subscribe below so you get notified of episodes. And if you're in the Central Texas area and need your bins clean, please reach out to Brendan on thebinspa.com. That will also be linked in the description. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.